Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Ask Me Anything stream, the live stream series where we just sit down and enjoy a nice Sunday chat. If you're watching this on the YouTube archive, I conduct these just chatting streams games every Sunday. Hey, as a way to continue catching up and discuss various topics. So right now we're find ourselves once again staying in Limbrave, similar spot to last time, though in the background we actually see one of the, I think it's one of the minor Erd trees from Elden Ring. But yeah, I believe that's the Weeping Peninsula in the background. And yeah, all in all, today's been a fairly good day. Been doing some work on a video essay that I mentioned last in last week's stream. But I think where I'm at with it right now is I found all the music I want to use for the video essay, but now I have to go through the process of finding the various footage I need for bits of dialogue I have here and there. So part of that involves going through a lot of old live streams from a video game we played a while back, and finding ways to connect it to the video essay's themes, make sure it's matching what I'm trying to convey, and so on and so forth. On the flip side, I've also been making some great progress on developing Heartwell. As we saw during the most recent dev stream, we've got the options menu and the credits menu in the main menu screen programmed a bit. And now we've also got the UI for the save files implemented, just the background UI, the actual text and numbers and alternate values still need to have their placements adjusted just so that they can align with the new UI. But we're getting there. And off stream, of course, I've been working quite hard on the tile sets for, well, the updated tile sets and stuff for the tutorial dungeon. And there's a couple of images on the Discord server that show just how much more colorful the tutorial dungeon will be as a result of this update. Well, as a result of the work that's going on. Beyond that, I'd say, work tends to be busy, but going very well. Hello, Copper Nicholson. Thanks for dropping by. Welcome, welcome. How's it going, Copper Nicholson? Welcome to the Sunday chat stream. I was just reminiscing over some of the items I've been working on this weekend. So, video essay, currently at the stage of trying to get clips of footage for specific parts of the video essay. And then with with Heartwell, working on the tile sets, working on the programming. Beyond that, life's been busy, but otherwise, I consider productive and good. The weird thing about, I guess, the weather, or more recently, is it's felt a lot more like summer, even though it's the middle of May. Which only makes me think that perhaps the summer's probably going to be even warmer than it currently is now. On the flip side, this might seem like an odd question for chat, but do you ever feel like when there's just, I don't know, certain weather outside, it makes you think of certain events of the year, even if it's not that time of year? So to give you an example, I was walking outside the other day. I think it was like maybe the mid 70 degrees, so Fahrenheit. The humidity was kind of around like maybe 30 or 40%, and I was thinking to myself, this feels like I'm at the beach almost. Like it feels like it makes me think of some times when I was younger. I feel like this is that same kind of weather. when I would be at the beach. Even though I typically go to the beach in the summertime, and right now it's still the middle of spring. I have moments like that where it's like that. Exactly, Copper Andelson. Like when it's cold or chilly out, you think of fall or winter, even if it's not actually fall or winter, or vice versa. Like if it's super hot out, you think, oh, it's like summer, even if it's not actually summer. I guess that comes with I just being, the conditioning of being human is we expect certain behaviors from certain times of the year, and when things don't quite line up with that, then and it's like our almost internal body. He gets confused about what time of year it actually is. So anyway, like I said, this is an Ask Me Anything stream, so if you got any questions, chat, just about various topics, that time that adheres to the chat rules, I'm all ears. Yeah. There's some other times where it's like when certain weather's out, it makes me think back to old camping trips I went on when I was younger. So like, if it's like a really nice fall day, for example, I think is it. Let's see. Topper Nicholson says, was it just you or Star Wars Day disappointed this year? I wouldn't say Star Wars Day was disappointing. I just think it's just become, at this point, another day in the overarching, well, just one of those days we keep in mind just throughout the year. So it doesn't have to necessarily mean something new has to be released. But I always enjoy just sending all the May the 4th memes on May the 4th for Star Wars Day. I found myself reminiscing about some of my favorite Star Wars games on May 4th, like Knights of the Old Republic, the old Battlefront games, even Star Wars The Old Republic to some extent. Even though it's not much of an old game, it's still, I have fond memories of playing through the Bounty Hunter storyline in Star Wars The Old Republic. And then from there, actually, chat, that's a good point. Anyone else have some fond Star Wars memories? Because when I think of fond Star Wars memories, a couple of things come to mind. First is obviously, playing through most of Knights of the Old Republic with my brothers. Those were, that game was one of our favorites when we were super young. I mean, it's still an excellent game. Then there's memories of taking turns playing Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2. I always enjoyed the space battles in Battlefront 2. I'd always use one of like the heavier starships to go try and actually face the big spaceships, as opposed to trying to infiltrate and things like that. And for the most part, let's see, thinking of some other fun Star Wars memories. I remember seeing Star Wars Episode 3 in theaters while we were... This was when I was still fairly young. But I remember seeing Star Wars Episode 3 in theaters, and it was during... it was at a time when my family was at the beach. So we went to a theater, watched Star Wars Episode 3, had a lot of fun. I just remember it just... I was definitely too young to understand all the themes that was happening in Episode 3, but I do remember how action-packed it was. Let's see here. Next up, we have... I've seen all the Disney Star Wars movies in theaters, or at least I've seen... Sorry, I take that back. I did not see Han Solo in theaters. In fact, I have not seen Han Solo. I haven't heard very many good things about that movie. But I have seen like episodes 7 through 9 in theaters, and I remember watching Rogue One in theaters. And yeah, beyond that, I've also been working on making some Star Wars, trying to set up stuff for a Star Wars Dungeons and Dragons campaign, such as rule sets and all. Character writing, world building. It's been a lot of fun so far. I feel like Star Wars has to be one of the largest franchises on the planet, since it's kind of almost ubiquitous with times of year like May the 4th or the end of December. So yeah. Do you have any fond memories about the Star Wars franchise, Copper Nicholson, or anyone else in chat? Because as it is, yesterday was May the 4th. Oh, I remember. There was a... Now, I don't remember what it was called, but prior to the invention of the Wii, there was there used to be like these little game, like electronic games you could plug into a TV that's had like an analog controller of sorts, so like a little fake lightsaber with some remote inside it that would allow you to essentially have like representing like blocking the blade or slashing with it on screen. And the idea with thinking back now, the game was horribly balanced. It was very much walk down straight corridors and fight, little pixelated images of droids, bounty hunters, or even some Jedi that would come that would appear on screen. But I remember still having some fun with that, just because it was kind of made. This was again before the time of the Wii, and the motion controls weren't half bad. That's a random memory I remember about Star Wars. But on the flip side, I think it also goes to show that kind of motion controls technology wasn't exactly a new thing when the Wii came out, but the Wii definitely popularized it. And fun facts about the Wii, chat. The Wii was the very first, like, if we don't include the PC, because technically my first video game console would have been the computer, so I played lots of computer games when I was younger. I remember my parents distinctly not wanting us to have any kind of like Xbox or PlayStation or things like that. But, oh yeah, the Lego Star Wars games, I have fond memories about that too. Like, especially going back to, like I said, because we didn't have I remember when I was younger, the idea, one of the main reasons is that we would have been, me and my brothers would have been interested in a video game console, would have been the idea of local network multiplayer. So basically being able to just play, play whichever games while using the same TV screen, so to speak, having almost like that split screen effect. But again, because we didn't have a console like that, and because the PC didn't really have split screen stuff like that was super effective, we generally had to resort to taking turns for most video games we play on our one computer. However, with Lego Star Wars, even it was one of those few games at the time that allowed you to actually have two players play at once without having a separate like controller or keyboard and mouse, things like that. So me and my brothers spent a lot of time playing through Lego Star Wars together for that reason. So, oh no, like looking back on it, I think they were absolutely they're absolutely right. It was to try and help us keep healthy so as not to get like addicted to any kind of console gaming at a young age where we're trying to have our formative years. And my point is, chat, like eventually as we got older, when the Wii came out, that was the first time our parents were like, okay, we'd be all right with this, because it actually had motion controls who weren't necessarily sitting on the couch and just playing games for hours upon hours upon hours. But as a result of that, one of the consequences of me playing PC games for the longest time and not really having too many options, because obviously, when you're young, you don't have any money, so you can't exactly go to the video game store and get new games that often. It meant that I got very used to exploring the various Flash game websites of the internet, and as a result, I got exposed to a wide variety of games made by, anyone who could learn to code. So there was no like, so at least on the internet, in Flash games, on all those websites like Newgrounds, Armor Games, Nitrome, etc. It was all a question of showing what you could do as a developer. There was no like hard and fast rules for needs to be at some video game company that made these games. Now granted, the scope is obviously a lot smaller on Flash games, because typically I would say if a Flash game lasts more than a couple of minutes, it's probably be fairly good. Well, I mean, it means that someone at least put a lot of time into it. Whether it's good or not, that's a different story. But that's because, you know, someone who's still in like middle school could make a Flash game. But it could also be someone who's in high school and college, etc. But as a result of that, you'd have to see a lot of different options. The TV, hello Matt, thanks for dropping by. How's it going? The TV thing was called Star Wars Lightsaber Battle TV Game Plug and Play. Yeah, I think that probably was it. Have you played it before, Matt? Because what I distinctly remember about it was it kind of went through episodes 1 through 3, sort of, for the most part. With you generally being a Jedi, fighting characters like Darth Maul, Jango Fett. And then there's like a secret boss at the end where you're on Hoth and have to fight Darth Vader. And it'll go from there. Hello, Lion Violin. Thanks for dropping by. Welcome, welcome. The Star Wars moment for you, Matt, was when Dark Forces launched for PC in 1995. It was so realistic for a time. That's a fair point. That's actually a game I never got to play. How is it a game that still holds up today? Because, you know, some of those older games don't necessarily hold up well today. That's something. How's question 5 today? Question 5 today is more of a discussion, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to post them in chat. I'd be more than happy to chat. Right now we're just generally discussing about May the 4th, various Star Wars memories, but if you guys have any particular questions you want me to go over, I'd be more than happy to. Is that the one with the Sith robot? I don't remember there was a Sith robot. Yeah, big silver lightsaber robots. Exactly, that's exactly the one. It still holds up. Has it on offer at the moment. Really? I'll have to keep it by. So remind me, what is Dark Forces like one of the, is it a strategy game? Is it an action game? Like, I don't even know the genre. I've just heard of it. Oh, they're remaking Dark Forces. Ooh. Well, I mean, remakes can be hit or miss, so I guess I'd have to wait until after it comes out to see if it's any good. Dark Forces like Half-Life. Oh, if it's like Half-Life, then I might actually be interested in that. Half-Life was, especially like the old, like Half-Life. Half-Life 2 is the game that made the idea of a long-form, story-driven, single-player experience a thing, like a popularized thing. Like, had it been done before Half-Life 2? Yes, but Half-Life 2 very much modernized that formula. So if it's anything like that, I'd be definitely be interested in it. Just, you know, like having lots of, you know, FPS single-player action with the occasional puzzle. I could definitely see that being pretty interesting. But, oh yeah, speaking of, like, older Star Wars games, who here has played Jedi Outcast? That's, you know, prior to the release of Fallen Order, I would have argued, you know, I would have stood on the hill and said that Jedi Outcast has the best lightsaber combat. Now, obviously, with the advent of Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, I think they do it even better because you're in a true, like, Souls-like formula with attack tells and stuff. But for the time, yeah, Jedi Outcast definitely needs a remake. So Jedi Outcast has Kyle Katarn, which is basically the Cal Kestis before there was Cal Kestis. Kyle Katarn, for the longest time, he was a bounty hunter, and eventually had to return to his roots as a Jedi Knight. So as a result of that, it played a lot like the older Doom games, or games where basically you have like a first-person point of view, you're holding some kind of blaster, and you're facing hordes of enemies through various different screens. But the thing that kind of made it stand out from especially the older Doom games is that there was a lot of platforming with it that it was a result of the fact that you had like force jump, force speed, things like that. But we want to talk about hard games though. Like, I distinctly remember Jedi Outcast being brutally difficult. Like, you have to manage your ammo so well in that game, and you have to also be very cautious because there's so many bottomless pits and things that can kill you if you don't do them like perfectly. Dark Force is the same era as Doom, but they got the audio perfect for Star Wars and the graphics look great for the time. That's good to hear. Yeah, I said with Jedi Outcast, like, I'll say this, chat. If you ever play Jedi Outcast, there are a couple of levels that are pretty infamous in that game for being pretty difficult for where they're at in the game. Alright, so quick show of hands, chat. Who here has actually played Jedi Outcast? Just so I know what where we stand here. I'm going to go over it from the perspective of someone who's never played Jedi Outcast, but at the same time, I still think if there's anyone who knows what I'm about to talk about, you can probably let me know if you had a different experience than I did. But basically, the levels that gave me the hardest time in Jedi Outcast that I can remember. So the first big one would have been Nar Shaddaa. And you might say, what part of Nar Shaddaa? Just technically, there's a couple of levels in that. It's all of them. But especially the very first one. So, to give you some perspective in Nar Shaddaa, the first, Cal Kestis is, not Cal Kestis, Kyle Katarn's on Nar Shaddaa. He's trying to go after, I think he was trying to rescue Lando Calrissian from, like, some local crime lord. So, you first go to a bar, and at the bar, they confiscate all... One of the things I remember that made that so difficult is, I'm pretty sure when you enter that bar, they confiscate all your weapons except your lightsaber. Now, granted, the lightsaber is, like, probably the best weapon in the game, but still, the one problem with the lightsaber is that it doesn't have range. And Nar Shaddaa is a giant city planet with lots of long lines of sight. So what ends up happening, chat, is not only have you lost all your weapons upon entering that bar, but then, you know, you're forced into a situation where you have to fight, and now you have all these, you know, you have all sorts of thugs everywhere that have assault blasters, sniper blasters, grenades, and the thing is, it doesn't just stop there in the bar. Once you get outside the bar again, it's like the entire city wants to kill you. So there'll be like snipers like 2 or 3 blocks away over bottomless pits, you know, hitting you with sniper beams that you can't deflect. And you're just trying to, like, it makes you feel like you're being hunted, having to go around every corner worried that your next step you'll just get bonked by something. Can you mod your lightsaber? You cannot. It's a bit of an older game, so it wasn't that kind of style of game, so you're stuck with a blue lightsaber. But what I do remember, well, if we want to talk about lightsaber customization, I think the Jedi Fallen Order / Survivor games do it perfectly. Like, you can do lots of cool little aesthetic changes to the lightsaber to make it look exactly the way you want it to. But anyway, so, but on top of having to deal with all the snipers and, like, the grenadiers and stuff, like, that's bad enough, especially since they take away they take away your ranged weapons, so your ability to kind of fight back from a distance. But what makes it even, Episode 1 Racers also a good game. Alright, definitely, I'll keep that in mind. I'm not as much into racing games personally, chat. With one major exception. Have you ever heard of a game called Trackmania, chat? And it doesn't have to be any particular Trackmania, just the name in general. So, the reason I'm not, like, a super big fan of racing games is because I tend to dislike how repetitive they are. Like, the whole point of, most racing games is just, try to beat your times or win against other players. But otherwise, for the most part, usually have somewhere between 10 and 30 tracks that are identical, and you just go through them over and over and over and over and over again. However, what makes Trackmania, stand out for me is because whereas a lot of racing games focus either they have zero customization, it's just, hey, okay, here's the carts, here's the races, try our best, best your time. On Trackmania, or some other games, even like Mario Kart's, like, okay, you can customize your carts a little bit, but the racetracks are otherwise basically the same, and you just go through them over and over again. In Trackmania, it's the opposite. Your car doesn't really have any customization that affects its stats. Instead, Trackmania has a level editor, and the whole point is to make crazy, ridiculous tracks for you to go race on. So think of Trackmania as the Super Mario Maker of racing games. So instead of, like, being able to customize your Mario, you're instead customizing your level, and it's way, way, way cooler than any other racing game I've ever played. Just check, there are 25 Star Wars games on deal. Oh, good to know, good to know. But anyway, so I just so I remember having fond memories of Trackmania because it never felt like you had to be stuck with the same couple of tracks, because you could always make your own. And even like the in-game level editor was pretty forgiving, so you could do a lot of stuff. With the incentive to continue playing the single-player campaign being that the more levels you beat, the more points you get to spend on actually putting stuff into your levels, and thus you can make longer levels, more complicated levels, things like that. It was a great like gameplay loop. And I think if anyone wants to, if anyone's curious about Trackmania but doesn't know a thing about it, I'd say Virtual is probably a good YouTuber to watch, because he's done a lot of breakdowns of some of the ridiculous shortcuts that people have tried to find on like the in-game tracks, as well as showing some community-made tracks. But yeah, the Trackmania definitely brings a lot of fun. It's like the one racing game, or I guess one racing game series that I would be actually genuinely interested in, because it's more about level design than it is about actually like repetitive beating split seconds things. Let's see here. Now, on the flip side, we were talking about the Star Wars games. So, we were talking about Nar Shaddaa on Jedi Outcast. So, in addition to losing most of your weapons except the lightsaber and being stuck with like long lines of sight against like enemies that have long range weapons that you can't deflect, and explosives, which you also can't deflect, what makes Nar Shaddaa also so brutal is the fact that, again, it's a big city with lots of big bottomless pits. And you're expected, like the path you have to go through Nar Shaddaa to get to the next level is, you're almost always over a bottomless pit. Like, you're on very like narrow walkways on the edges of skyscrapers, and then jumping across like floating like speeders, just to slowly climb your way up the level to the right side of the map, only to then have to turn around and go back to the left side of the map again, all over bottomless pits, just to get onto a platforming segment where you have to stand on like a little floating minecart almost, and do a platforming puzzle with, again, people with long-range weapons that you can't necessarily fight back against very easily, just to get into the next level. But it gets worse. Because at the next level, then you're actually in the hideout of the person you're trying to get Lando back from. And in that hideout, there's a number of segments with like hydraulic presses, where you're essentially, in order to progress through the level, you have to physically go through these rooms with hydraulic presses just to get certain key items in order to free Lando. But the problem with that is that the hydraulic presses, as you can probably imagine, will destroy you instantly. And you have to time, you have to time when you enter these rooms very carefully so that you don't instantly die. And again, still not having your stuff that you used to have from earlier in the game. So, all in all, like, the Nar Shaddaa section is just insanely brutal from that perspective. Then I remember, like, next level I remember is there's this segment in the space station where essentially, imagine very long hallways with timed electrical circuits, where you have to basically go from hallway to hallway, but you get caught on the electricity, you die instantly. And it's like the timing is like you have to be within like a fraction of a second while using force speed to make it through these sections, with the last one being a brutally long sprint through a corridor that will destroy you 9 times out of 10. Like, it is brutal. How would I balance the game mechanics of an Inquisitor stance for Cal Kestis? So, it's a good question, Copper Nicholson. So for some backgrounds regarding stances, in the like Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor kind of games, well, as in Jedi Survivor specifically, the stances are meant to represent like different play styles for Cal, because he has like a different type of lightsaber out. So I'm assuming by an Inquisitor stance, you mean you having a double-bladed lightsaber with like that little ring around it to allow it to do the spinny thing. So I think the Inquisitor stance would be very much. I think the way to balance it would be more of like an aggressive version of the twin-bladed of the dual saber stance. So probably a situation where, like, if you're doing things like the spinning lightsaber thing, the Inquisitor stance would have incredible. I think what it would do is, so the way the dual saber is balanced is it attacks quickly, but its individual attacks don't do very much damage. And it's more of like a defensive stance. I think with the Inquisitor stance, I think it should be terrible at deflecting. Like, maybe have really, really bad, like, parry mechanics, things like that. So it's like, you can't really do much to defend yourself with it. And that lines up with how the Inquisitor lightsaber is designed. Like, that whole circular thing is actually a design flaw from a defensive perspective. But on the flip side, because you have that spinny thing, every time you slash, maybe instead of getting like 2 hits in like you do with the dual saber stance, maybe you're getting anywhere from like 4 to 6 hits in. So it's like each individual strike is like with the dual saber very weak, but if you're able to do it consistently, it has the highest DPS in the game. So I think that would be how to balance it, is make it terrible for parrying, terrible for blocking, but fantastic for just absolute raw DPS. But maybe it might not have quite the same level of power as the heavy stance, so, you know, like Kylo Ren's lightsaber, but it would be a bit more forgiving, so a bit more fluid. So it kind of be like just kind of like some middle ground between the dual sabers, the twin saber stance, and the saber staff stance, and the heavy stance. That's how I would balance it, Copper Nicholson. But yeah, so other levels that I did not like in Jedi Outcast. Towards the end of the game, mind you, this is the furthest I got in Jedi Outcast, because when I was playing, I was still a bit younger. I've said before, chat, like, there are times where games just try to implement game mechanics that make no sense for what they were trying to do, and don't really do a great job of explaining it. Jedi Outcast, unfortunately falls into one of those categories, because, let's see, can I repeat what I said? What I was saying, Topper Nicholson, is the Jedi Inquisitor stance would basically be like a high DPS, low blockability version of the dual saber stance. Quinn asks, also, hello Quinn, nice to drop you by, how's it going? Quinn asks, what's the most odd game I've played? Ooh, odd games. I've played quite a number of odd games. I just want to say flat out, chat, like, in terms of odd games, like, it's hard to get much more odd than some Flash games. So some Flash games have some pretty out there ideas. Okay, so what is, like, the weirdest Flash game I have played? Let me think about this for a second, because there's a couple that come to mind. Alright, so first thing about the first odd Flash game that comes to mind is there is no, like, this is the only level. So this is the only level is a game that has just, you know, it's a single, it's a lot like a single screen puzzle platformer like you'd see in like some Super Mario Brothers Super Mario Maker levels, where it's like you have one screen puzzle, almost try to get to the goal. And you play as like this PNG of an elephant going through a very, you know, simplistic looking platforming puzzle. But what made it such an odd game is that the name of each level, the name of each screen, if you will, because it's the only level, gives you a hint to what the puzzle is, and it's very fourth wall breaky. Like, sometimes it'd be a situation where, like, the platform mechanics have completely changed entirely, like maybe you can't jump anymore. Or maybe it's like, maybe certain blocks just don't matter, but it's only for that particular screen. It's a weird game. But it was, you know, still pretty fun and enjoyable. Let's see. Most odd game I have played. Try to think of some other examples of some odd Flash games. Alright. There's a Flash game, chat, called Gangsta Bean. And you might be saying, Gangsta what? Yes. I just, like, imagine, like, lots and lots of artwork depicting, like, you play as a being that wields like you know, various firearms. And you fight, you know, and your allies are like, I think it's like a carrot and I want to say an orange, though I might be misremembering that. And you're fighting like all sorts of demonic looking like jelly beans, chocolate bars, fast food. There's even boss fights in the game. Like it is a Story of the Blanks. I haven't heard of that one. I'll keep that one in mind. I have not heard of that one. But yeah, Dance of the Bean, that's a weird one, more so for its style. I mean, the gameplay is very much just 2D sort of fighting sort of game, moving between screens, but just the whole premise of it is like, it's definitely out there. Let's see. I think I should have probably added one more weird Flash game and leave it at that. So let's limit this one to games by Nitrome, because Nitrome was my favorite Flash game creator. So Nitrome is in a unique situation where they put out a Flash game almost every month, and they were always really high quality about it. So we want to talk about odd Flash games. It's kind of hard to ignore Nitrome Must Die. So imagine, like, when they were making their 100th Flash game, Nitrome decided, you know, it'd be really funny. What if we made our longest Flash game ever, but instead of making it like another, like, something around a certain gameplay mechanic, let's instead make it a 2D platformer battle game, where the idea is you go through a 100-floor skyscraper fighting enemies and bosses that are literally just other characters and things we've designed from others of our Flash games. And hence why it's called Nitrome Must Die. Like, that was a weird game, but it was creative as heck. Alright. Now, Copper Nicholson was asking before, but the spinny thing, wouldn't that be helpful? I'd say no, because the whole idea behind the spinny thing for the Inquisitor Saber is actually terrible defensively. So the reason why, and let's say in comics, if you're using a Saber staff, you see Darth Maul doing like all sorts of spinny things to deflect itself. Why would the Inquisitor Saber be worse? It's for the simple reason that when you're using a twin saber, you're not actually keeping like the center truly open for attack. You are constantly maneuvering almost in like a rowing motion. But with the auto spinner, you always have that center point that's completely wide open. And that's why I would say it wouldn't be nearly as effective as a defensive stance. But conversely, because it is spinning the lightsaber faster than any human being physically could, it means that using it kind of like the Bone Wheel shield from Dark Souls would allow you to get much higher damage per second in, because you're getting many hits very, very quickly, one after the other, if you line it up correctly. So that's how that's kind of how I would balance an Inquisitor stance if Caltastus had anything like that. So, any other questions, chat? I hope that answers your question, Quinn. About some weird, some weirder names I said. So, there's definitely a lot out there. Those were the first couple that definitely came to mind. Yeah, one of the benefits of not having a video game console besides the PC earlier on there was definitely that I got to experience a wide variety of different video game types, things like that. Quinn says, they really enjoyed my Star Wars discussion, but did I include Coder? I mentioned Coder, but I didn't really go super in-depth about it. So, like I was saying earlier, my brothers and I played Coder a lot. Coder stands for Knights of the Old Republic. And it's just a really well-made game. Like, it's a really excellent Star Wars Dungeons & Dragons campaign. That is what Knights of the Old Republic is. And it really nails the role-playing aspects to it very well, while also telling a really compelling story with very well-written characters and world-building. No, Copper Nicholson, it would not, having a spinning wall of lightsaber energy wouldn't be effective at blocking for the sole reason because there's an eye to that spinning wall of energy that's completely exposed. So, Whereas with the saber staff, you're doing more of a rowing lightsaber wall of energy. With the auto thing, again, you have that central eye that is never defensible. It has nothing to do about wearing gloves, Copper Nicholson. It is simply that is a major design flaw from a defensive standpoint. Hence why I would say that it should be a thing that's used for offense. But enough about that, Copper Nicholson. Let's go talk about Code, Knights of the Old Republic. So, besides just being a really well-made Dungeons & Dragons campaign, I think what makes Knights of the Old Republic stand out for a lot of people is two things. One is it explores the light and dark side of the Force in ways that are a lot more nuanced than simply light side good, dark side bad, the end. I won't get too much into that for spoiler reasons, since I think even though Knights of the Old Republic is over 20 years old at this point, it is still at least I think it's over 20 years old at this point. I still consider it a game that you really should experience for yourself blind if you can. But one tiny bit of the other thing I'll mention is that Knights of the Old Republic actually expanded the Star Wars lore in a way that sounds so important that it makes you question, why did the movies never touch upon this? So, Twin says, you've read that the lore actually adds to the canon in a way that the Kylo Ren trilogy picks up. So, it does. And where it does, chat, is because Knights of the Republic is what gave us the Jedi Code and the Sith Code. If you don't believe me, look this up, chat. So, the whole, when you're watching the Star Wars movies, the Jedi and Sith are all these sort of mysterious religious groups, but you never really get to learn about okay, why do they do what they do beyond just good versus evil sort of thing. And Knights of the Old Republic literally gave us these codes that explain the ideology of both the Jedi Order and the Sith Empire. And those codes give us such a much deeper, more nuanced insight into both how the Jedi practice the light side of the Force and the Sith practice the dark side of the Force. So, just for our own, just to give you an idea of how it's why isn't this in the movies, I'm going to pull up the Jedi and Sith codes just so you can understand just how important these are. So first we have the Jedi Code, which again, even the article I'm pulling up here is showing pictures of the movies, but the actual quote is from Coder. So, first of all, the Jedi Code. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. That's the Jedi Code. And it very much speaks to the idea of the Jedi as seen as the Force is all that matters. The pursuit of knowledge, harmony, balance, and the Force is all that matters. And the Jedi Code really exudes that. On the other hand, I see Copper Nicholson's already quoting it. We have the Sith Code, which again is also from Knights of the Old Republic. Minor spoiler for Knights of the Old Republic here, chat. You get the opportunity to see things from the perspective of both the Jedi and the Sith in Knights of the Old Republic, hence why the Sith Code is even there. And the Sith Code reads as follows. Peace is a lie, there's only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall free me. Twin notes, Jedi Code seems very inspired by Buddhism, but taken to an aesthetic extreme. I can certainly see that. And the Sith Code, on the other hand, is a lot more individualism taken to the extreme. Because the idea is, whereas the Jedi Code talks about things in general, the Sith Code talks about me, me, me. It's just saying there's only passion, and that who has more passion has more power, and through power I gain victory, and through victory I set things. And the Force, to the Sith, the Force is is a means to who gives someone power, whereas to the Jedi, the Force is what is. Now, obviously, those are both very extreme ideologies, but they give us such massive insight into both the Jedi and the Sith that, again, makes you question, why weren't these in the movies? Like, why is it that a video game had to introduce this stuff to us? But I digress. What change are the Sith talking about? Great question, Quinn. So, for some historical context here, the Sith used to be Jedi. But they almost are essentially breaking apart or rebelling from the Jedi in a sense. And, you know, to be fair, the Jedi High Order has massive problems, being overly restrictive and stuff to the point of not having any passion or connection to others. That's what the Jedi Order preaches. The Sith, on the other hand, is all about the individual, but again, taken to a toxic extreme. Because if might makes right, then that, you know, that's obviously a recipe for disaster. Are those the chains of the human conditions? So the idea of it would be the chains of whatever is standing in your way, in essence. So I remember in KOTOR, there's a character that basically said they joined the Sith Academy because for the longest time they were a survivor, and they saw the dark side of the Force as a way to help them survive and bring some sense of justice to what they were, to their goal. Obviously, they lost their way, but still, they see that, like, the Sith code is much more raw, much more survival of the fittest situation. Whereas the Jedi code is more so about trying to find harmony in the universe. Now anyway, chat, so again, if nothing else, Knights of the Old Republic expands the lore of the Jedi and the Sith in a way that the movies never bothered to delve into. And they are able to do that because, once again, video games aren't limited by like a 2 to 4 hour runtime. So, just because of the media, that's the type of media it is. Because, like, with a movie especially, if it goes beyond like 3.5 hours, like it can easily get confusing. Now, let's see here. If the Jedi are supposed to be the good guys, how come they don't get any cool superpowers? I'm not sure what you're talking about there, Copper Nicholson. Force push, force pull, telekinesis, force mind trick. Like, all of those, you know, are stuff that the Jedi can do. Those would be considered superpowers by any stretch of the imagination. They're just different types of superpowers. And also, Copper Nicholson, the Jedi, like, if you play Knights of the Old Republic, I would argue the light side of the Force honestly has the best Force powers. They might not be as flashy as the dark side of the Force, but seriously, like, some of, like, the Force buffs you get in Knights of the Old Republic, like Jedi Force Valor, Force Force Armor, and especially Force Speed. Like, they are just, like, you cast all those in a row, you're set. Like, you're almost untouchable. Like, so, and Knights of the Old Republic 2 is also a great game. If you play the version that restores a lot of the cut content, because Knights of the Old Republic 2 released in an unfinished state, because Knights of the Old Republic 2 actually says, you know, actually further kind of explores the idea that the light side isn't necessarily good and the dark side isn't necessarily bad. And it does so in a fascinating way, but I'll leave it at that because I don't want to give you guys too many spoilers. But yeah, if there's any other questions, chat, feel free to post them. Let's see here. So, what chips do I like? Great question, Quinn. Well, in terms of, like, there are many different types of chips, but I would say probably kettle chips and jalapeno chips would probably be my two favorites. I can go back and forth between which one I would prefer more. It definitely just kind of depends on the day, but they're both, like, pretty good. Kettle chips because they have a nice salty flavor to them. whereas jalapeno chips, because it has that nice jalapeno tip to them. Beyond that, I'd say barbecue chips are also pretty good. Cool. I see you guys have, Vengeance salt and vinegar chips, turkey stuffing chips. There definitely are a lot of chip flavors out there. Yeah, come to think of it, potato chips are honestly one of the things that they could probably make in Elden Ring, because it's just essentially roast potatoes, in a sense. But they never make anything like that. Imagine what... Alright, chat, question for you. What would potato chips do in Elden Ring? Like, what special ability would they give? Personally, I would be of the opinion that potato chips would give, like, a minor boost to slashing damage negation, as well as probably an increase to robustness. Oh, secret boss fight against a potato. Yes! Listen, if From Software can make, like, a tree a boss fight, I'm sure they could probably find some way to make, like, a potato a boss fight. Make you crunchier for the boss. Oh no, so it's like, it draws the boss's attention. I guess I did see that. It's always a possibility. Potato, Lord of Spuds, yes! That would be an interesting, that would be an interesting boss fight. Oh, man. Alright. Well. Let's see. Now, since you mentioned, you boil them, maximum sit the boss in a stew. Oh, no. Just like the Lord of the Rings memes. Oh, the Lord of the Rings memes. I know. So, let's see, what else is there? Oh, I know. So, I have heard, chat, that there is a Knights of the Old Republic remake that might be being made in, in the next couple of years. And if that project does end up, going through to completion, my only hope is that they do it justice, because just like with, like, the Final Fantasy VII remakes and, like, the Resident Evil 2 remakes, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to remake this, you better not miss, sort of thing. Because we don't want to detract from the legacy that is Knights of the Old Republic. Let's see here. So yeah, like, if they do make, like, Knights of the Republic remake, like, my dream remake would be make Knights of the Old Republic like an action RPG, kind of. I don't think we'll ever get, like, a Souls-like Knights of the Old Republic, but maybe at least make it kind of similar to going more in the vein of, like, your maybe like the Final Fantasy VII remake, or the I guess more in line with, like, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. You want From Software to make a My Little Pony game? I feel like if From Software made a My Little Pony game, it would end up being the best My Little Pony game, and also really, really, really brutally difficult. Like, anyone who thinks the various demigods we find in Elden Ring are terrifying have nothing on the likes of the literal deities that are fought in My Little Pony. There's quite literally a god, almost a god of chaos that becomes, like, a friend with one of the ponies. So it could definitely get really, really, really difficult if they really want to. I just have this image now in my chat of, like, just picture, like, show one of the fights from My Little Pony, but then just play, like, Dark Souls boss music behind it. It just automatically becomes more epic. Okay. Let's see here. Let's see. Coppernill says the only AAA game currently out there in Soulless Crash Grab is Maritime Bay Adventures. Haven't heard of that one, but I don't think that's the only one. So, for example, Copper Nicholson, you brought up the Cal Kestis games, Jedi Fallen Order and Giant Survivor. Those are AAA games. So, those are definitely not soulless cash grabs. Like, Respawn Entertainment definitely poured their heart and soul into both of those games. And I just say the same about, like, Elden Ring here. Like, From Software is down to the point where they become basically a AAA developer. But you can see they have not lost their touch. This is not... This here is not a cash grab. This is art. Like, I would not be using this as our backdrop for a Just Chatting stream if it wasn't some kind of art. Nah, I haven't heard of that one, Captain Nicholson. But anyway, any other questions, chat? This, you know, now I think about for the Elden Ring DLC, how cool would it be if they add, like, new weather types? Like, maybe, like, hailstorms or things like that, just to spice things up a little bit more. Let's see here. A My Little Pony fighting game. I see. Well, then there is precedence for perhaps making a Souls like My Little Pony. Oh, like Smash or Mortal Kombat. I see. Okay. Yeah, there definitely were a lot of Flash games like that. I think I remember even like a SpongeBob Flash game that was definitely like more of a fighting game. You lose health during a hailstorm. I think that would probably be a little too brutal. But maybe during a hailstorm, like, it'd be a situation where it's easier to proc frostbite damage, but it also makes it more difficult to maybe proc like bleed damage or something like that, since all your weapons are frozen. I think little things like that would be pretty interesting. Oh, I'm not talking about Nicktoons All-Stars Power. I'm talking way before that, like on Flash gaming websites where Nickelodeon had their own like groups of Flash games. The ones I remember the most was there was a, like I mentioned, there was like a SpongeBob fighting game where you have different SpongeBob characters fighting like almost like Street Warrior. And then there was also like, there used to be this old Nickelodeon show called Cat Scratch, and there's a really fun Flash game where essentially it was a 2D sort of strategy. You try like launch projectiles using physics-based stuff to hit the other players kind of thing. Very similar to I forget the name of it. I think it might have been Stick Fight or something. But basically, there was like a Flash game with like stick figures, or I guess the modern incarnation would be Worms. The various Worms games, where essentially you have different units on like a large 2D map, and you like launch different projectiles, grenades, etc., while trying to make them hit the other opponents. That style of game. But yeah. Yeah, there could be hailstorms. Well, what other kind of weather could there be? Is this the Cat Scratch? Let me check. I believe... Yeah, pretty sure that was... Yep, that would have been Cat Scratch. Definitely a bit of an older Nickelodeon series at this point. Yeah, honestly, chat. Like, if you were adding, like, any weather to Elden Ring, I wonder what you guys would be interested in. Because for me, I think like having weather effects that affected more like the stats effects buildups would be kind of interesting. Because we already have the situation where, like, if it's raining, you know, fire does less damage, but lightning does more damage. Maybe we have, like, almost like celestial rain or celestial snow or something that would, like, maybe make the magic do more damage or something like that. And then you'd have the opposite, like, maybe what if there was, like, almost like an oil rain that made, like, fire deal more damage and made, like, lightning weaker or something like that. We definitely spruce things up a little bit in terms of variety. Meteor shower. Now that would be interesting. You know what I think the meteor shower should be? I think if there was a meteor shower, it should be a thing like there's now, you know, the hazards of the falling meteors, but maybe you get, like, significantly more runes and items. Like, I think that'd be cool. Hey, look, it's raining. Rain, rain, rain. Yeah. Alright, chat, I am noticing it's staying closer to 4 o'clock, so chat, if you have any last questions you want to ask before the end of today's stream, be sure to post them soon, since we are approaching the end of today's Sunday, chat. Yeah, I feel like a tornado would be a bit much to add, considering the type of game Elden Ring is with stat buildings. Quinn says, nice chatting. See you next week. All right. Thanks for dropping by, Quinn. I hope you have a good rest of your day. And, Copper Nicholson asks what I like to see during. Nope. You know, I'm open. I think I think we were watching that. Well, I mean, that can be something that can be talked about off stream. Yeah. So I think. I see. All right. Well, something to keep in mind. All right. I think I'll begin to wrap things up here then, chat. So if you're watching on Twitch, feel free to stick around for a raid. But if you're watching on YouTube and you like what you saw, please consider subscribing on YouTube. It's free to subscribe on YouTube. Don't always change your mind later. As for show support. If you're watching YouTube, have an amazing night.